his commitment to the Lord, to always do the best that he could do, and that others were blessed through him, that's always fascinated me. And that's always been the part of the story that I focused the most. Today we're going to focus on something earlier than that, though. The title is, Who Are You? And who is in control of your life? And these are two questions. I don't even have to look over here. That's great. I don't have to worry about that. There's nobody over there. These are two questions that Joseph undoubtedly had to ask himself growing up, and especially at the point that the scripture reading takes place, where his brothers are plotting to kill him. I've had some fights with my brothers before, but to my knowledge, none of us ever wanted to kill each other. How did it get to that point? What brought family to the point of wanting to kill their second to youngest brother? So to get an idea of who Joseph was, we need to look at his background. A lot of people say, well, who are you? When you meet someone for this first time, my name is Forrest. Who are you? Are we just a name? Are we just an occupation? Because that's usually the first two things that we talk about, right? When we meet someone. Hi, my name is Forrest. I work in medical records. Who are you? Does that really tell us much about the person? Does that tell us who they are? Or does it tell us what they do? And who's in control of our life? So once again, going back, because I got off topic there. Who is Joseph? To get an understanding of that, we need to look at his background, right? There's that philosophy is our becoming who we are, is that by nature or by nurture? There's that debate. Which is more, it's pretty much a consensus now that it's a combination of the two. But which one is more influential on who you become as a person? Is it your genetics? Is it the nature that makes who you are? Or is it the people you surround yourself with and that you learn from? Well, Joseph had a very interesting family. A very dysfunctional family, if you will. His father was deceitful. Him and his mother stole by deceiving their husband and father the blessing that Isaac had intended for Esau. And he took advantage of Esau in a moment of weakness. He weaseled him out of his birthright. But later on, because he had to flee home because of the situation that caused for him, he runs into Laban and falls in love with one of his daughters, Rebecca, the younger of two sisters. And he decides to work for Laban for 7 years so that he can marry Rebecca. But Laban is deceitful as well, and instead gives him Leah, and gives some excuse that I can't marry off my younger daughter before my older daughter is married, but hey, you work 7 more years for me and I'll give you Rebecca too. So he does. He works another 7 years, and now he's married to 2 sisters. And this is another problem for Joseph's family, because Jacob loves Rebekah. That's where his heart is. But he's obligated to Leah, and Leah feels the absence of love in her life. And so it becomes a competition between the 2 women of who can give Jacob sons, who can give him heirs. And even their names represent that strife between the 2 women in the home. Eventually, when things are looking dire. Leah stops having children. Rebecca has yet to have any. Jacob takes 2 new wives, the handmaids of both of his wives, to have children with them. So Joseph is growing up in a family with 4 mothers who are all vying for some attention with Jacob, who are having an internal battle. It's to the point where one of the women is able to get cultivated some herbs that are meant to help with fertility. Her son goes out and finds these mandrakes and brings them home for Leah. And Rebecca is desperate to have children, and so she trades a night with her husband for the fertility herbs. So we have sons from 4 different women. And when Joseph's younger brother Benjamin is born, he loses his mother. She dies in childbirth. So his only mother is gone, his biological mother. He has 3 other women that I'm sure help to tend to his needs. But in that situation, this is just my own hypothesizing here, but I don't probably feel like he felt the love from those women that he would have from his own mother. So what happens, Jacob is very attached to Joseph at this point. It is the oldest son from his favorite wife. And that wife is now gone. Jacob's own parents had favorites. Rebecca favored Jacob, Isaac favored Esau, and that caused problems in their home. But yet, that favoritism moves on from family to family. And Jacob is now experiencing that favoritism in his own family. And Joseph is taking the brunt of it from his brothers for it. Now, I remember from my childhood, we always thought that my youngest brother was the baby and he was the favorite, right? Now, if you ask them, they'd say that, oh no, you were the favorite because you were the oldest. But Dad and Mom didn't favor any of us, in reality. Maybe sometimes, but in reality, that wasn't the case. But it definitely was here. And those other brothers saw it. It was real to them. They felt it. And they envied Joseph. And they hated him for it. But is that what caused them to want to kill him? The story of Joseph in the Bible really gets where it focuses on him is in Genesis 37. So if you have your Bibles and you want to turn there, we're going to go to Genesis 37 and we're going to start in verse 2. Once again, this is the New King James Version. I adopted it because when my kids were going through the Pathfinder Bible experience, that's the version that they used for their studies. That was what they were going to get tested on. And so I'm like, well, why are we going to study 2 different versions? I was actually preferential to the New International Version because it was easier for me to understand. But this one's not bad. So Genesis 37:2. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. Now these are the 2 handmaids that Jacob had taken as wives. Joseph was 17 here. This is where the Bible picks up his story. So slightly younger than my Joseph. And we see here that he's bringing back a report. Now in your experience working, who's the one that brings back reports? Is it the workers? Supervisor. Or is it the supervisor? Manager, if you will. do you think that makes those brothers feel as well? Here he is, the youngest, well, not the youngest, Benjamin is the youngest, but out of 12 brothers, did I mention that? 12 brothers. I thought I had a big family. 12 brothers, 10 of them older than Joseph, are being managed by a 17-year-old. Imagine you going to work, and your manager isn't even 18 years old yet. Furthermore, he's the favorite of your father, your younger brother. We expect that of the older brother, right? Most families, the oldest child is in charge of the younger children, or at least helping to guide them, maybe not fully in charge. Boy, my brothers didn't like that. But imagine if it was the other way around and my youngest brother was in charge of me. No, I wouldn't have liked that at all. And yet here's the situation we're presented with. Joseph is bringing back not only a report, but it's a bad report about his brothers. What do we call that? Tattletale? Snitch? What's that saying? Snitches get stitches? Yeah, you can see why their anger is brewing. Moving forward, by the way, we're going to stay here in 37. I don't jump around a whole lot. If I do, it's going to be more of me just recalling the situation. I'm not going to jump around, so you don't have to worry about that. That's one of the reasons why I enjoy using my cell phone, because I was really bad at thumbing through the pages. So with the cell phone, I was able to keep up with chapter changes, but we're going to stay here in 37. Verses 3 and 4. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all of his children, because he was the son of his old age. That's another point. Not only was it his favorite wife's oldest son, but he was also an old man at this time as well. Also, he made him a tunic of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all of his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. He's treating Joseph as a favorite. And then he's making it stand out even more, giving him a coat of many colors. Very expensive coat for that time. A visual distinction to go with everything else that his brothers are noticing. So much so that they couldn't speak peaceably to the younger brother. What's going to happen next is Joseph's going to get a dream. Let's read that. Verses 5 through 8. Now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, "Please hear this dream that I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And indeed your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf." And his brother said to him, "Shall you indeed reign over us? Or shall you indeed have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. I don't know why Joseph decided to share this dream with his brothers. Obviously, this is a message from God. Some dreams you wake up from and you know that there are no messages. That's just your mind on autopilot, and you're going, getting some crazy things happening. But there are some dreams that you wake up from and they're so profound. Maybe not necessarily a message from God, but it makes you start thinking. In this case, this affected him very deeply. And you can tell, obviously, that's exactly what it meant. They're right. This dream is him saying that he's going to reign over them. He's going to have dominion. They're going to bow down to their younger brother. Why would Joseph tell his brothers this dream? He was dumb. He was 17. And maybe it was his naivety, right? Maybe he thought that this might gain some favor with his brothers. Maybe it was his way to needle them back. They've been treating him badly. We don't know. But he does. He shares it with them. And they hate him even the more for it. Then what happens? Then he dreamed. Still another dream. Then what does he do? He told it to his brothers again and said, look, I've dreamed another dream. And this time, the sun, the moon, the 11 stars, they bowed down to me. And he told it to his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, what is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you? And his brothers envied him, but his father kept this matter in mind. What's he do? He doubles down. He's like, it didn't work the first time. I'm going to do it again. This dream, I got another dream. It's the same. It's just showing that everyone's going to bow down to him. But this time, it's expanded, right? Now, it elaborates. It's not just his brothers that are going to bow down to him, but his father and his mother as well. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that his mother is still with him at this point. So maybe this is referring to his stepmothers. Either way, his mother, his father, his brothers are all going to bow down to him. Now, as later in Joseph's life reveals that when you have the two dreams that represent the same thing, it means that it's going to happen soon. And it means that it's important, right? We're not going to get into that today, unfortunately. But his dream repeats. It confirms what the first one was. It elaborates on it. And it's not received well. But did anything stick out to you in that last line that stuck out to me? His brothers envied him. And his father kept that matter in mind. It doesn't say his brothers hated him. And his father rebuked him for it, but yet he's keeping it in mind. So I turned to Ellen White in the book of Patriarchs and Prophets and see if she can shed a little bit of light on that, because it doesn't. The scriptures just move on from there and they don't elaborate on it. And I don't know if you're new to our church, if you're a visitor today, or maybe you're not, but you're not familiar with Ellen White. She was one of our earliest members in the church, influential in founding the church, and we believe her to be a prophet. And there is one thing that she said, was that she was to be a lesser light to guide us to the greater light. We're not to put her on a pedestal. She is not the scriptures, but she does help us understand them. So in her book, Patriarchs and Prophets, she says, notwithstanding the apparent severity of his words, Jacob believed that the Lord was revealing the future to Joseph. That's what it meant when he kept it in mind. Initially, it's outrageous. Why would a father bow down to his son? But it was evident to him that the Lord had been revealing something to his son. As the lad stood before his brothers, his beautiful countenance lighted up with the spirit of inspiration. They could not withhold their admiration. They envied him, but they did not choose to renounce their evil ways, and they hated the purity that reproved their sins. The same spirit that actuated Cain was kindling in their hearts. who's Cain?
That's right.
Cain killed his brother, right? Why? Jealousy. That same jealousy that actuated Cain made him do something is coursing through his brother's souls at this moment. They envied him. They saw the inspiration, the spirit of inspiration that was lighting him up. And that's where the envy comes in. But because they didn't want to renounce their evil ways, they hated him evermore for it. The scriptures go on. Then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." So he, Joseph, said to him, "Here I am." And he said to him, "Please go and see if it is well with your brothers, and well with the flocks, and bring back word to me." So he sent him out of the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem. So once again, who's tending the flocks? His brothers are. What's he doing? Managing, supervising. Now, something I forgot to mention earlier when we talked about his dysfunctional family. In the land of Shechem, 2 of his brothers deceived an entire city and murdered all the men there, and then captured women and children as slaves. Ellen White says that Jacob was worried about his sons because they were in the land of Shechem, and he was worried about retaliation. So that's why he sent Joseph to go check on them. Verse 18 through 22. Now when they saw him, Joseph, his brothers are seeing him afar off. Even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. And then they said to one another, "Look, this dreamer is coming. Come therefore, let us now kill him, cast him into some pit, and we'll say that some wild beast has devoured him. And we shall see what will become of his dreams." But Reuben heard it. Reuben is his oldest brother. And he delivered him out of their hands by saying, "Let us not kill him." And Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit which is in the wilderness, and do not lay a hand on him." This was so that he might deliver him out of their hands and bring him back to his father. Reuben wasn't cool with going through with killing his younger brother. And he had to walk away from the situation, Ellen White says, so that he wouldn't give his true motives away to his brothers. What's going to happen next is going to be the most difficult part of Joseph's life up until this point. And he hasn't had it easy. He doesn't have his mother. His brothers hate him. They won't even talk nicely to him. Their family lives in worry that there's going to be retribution coming upon them for what his 2 brothers did. But that's going to be nothing in comparison to what happens next. When he told them of his dreams, when he told them of the message that God sent him, did they receive it? They scoffed at him. They rebuked him, they scoffed at him. But now he gets stripped of his cloak. He gets thrown into a pit. And while Reuben is away, his brothers decide to do something a little different. You see, there's an opportunity that has come by at this point. There's a caravan of traders that are traveling by. Adding insult to injury, this is Ishmael's generation. So going back to great-great-grandpa and the trouble he had having a son with an extra wife. Jacob didn't learn from him. He had split off. And so he was sold as a slave to these people who were heading to Egypt. Hence the pyramids in the background. His physical life is spared at this point, but his life as he knows it is over. He's going to be forever separated from his family to his knowledge. We have the benefit of knowing how the story ends, but he's being sold as a slave, and he's being taken to a far-off land, never to see his parents again, never to see the brothers again. So he's got to dig deep. He's got to ask himself that question, who am I? Going back to patriarchs and prophets. Alone and friendless, what would be his lot in the strange land to which he was going? For a time, Joseph gave himself up to uncontrolled grief and terror. Accustomed to his father's care, he felt that he was unprepared to cope with the difficulties before him in the bitter, uncared-for life of a stranger and a slave. Does it look like the dream that God sent him is going to come to fruition at this point in Joseph's life? Would this maybe cause him to doubt? Would this shake his faith? It could. Be pretty easy. What did his forefathers do? Rebekah was told that her younger son Jacob would rule over the older son by God when she was concerned with the two twin boys rumbling in her tummy. But when it kind of came time to it, they didn't wait for God to actuate his plan. They deceived. They resorted to deceit and manipulation. Go back further. Grandfather Isaac, what did he do? God told him to go stay in this foreign land, and that Abraham's promise was going to flow through him. What was that promise? To be a father of many nations, right? To be, his offspring would be as numerous as the sands of the seas. And yet, when he was questioned about his wife, what did he do? He said, she's my sister. Because he was afraid they would kill him to get his wife. He wasn't relying on God's promise, on his time, for the plan that he had out for him. He was going to take it upon himself to procure that promise. What did his father do? What did great-great-grandpappy say? Abraham, when he was in a similar situation, he said, my wife is my sister, because he was also afraid for the same thing. Joseph is now in a very bitter predicament. Is he going to try to take matters into his own hands? Is he going to try to rely on his own means for that promise to be seen out? No. He's different. Ellen White goes on to say, then his thoughts turned to his father's God. In his childhood, he had been taught to love and fear him. Now all these precious lessons came vividly before him. Joseph believed that the God of his fathers would be his God. He then and there gave himself fully to the Lord, and he prayed that the keeper of Israel would be with him in the land of his exile. And what time is it? His soul thrilled with the high resolve to prove himself true to God, under all circumstances to act as became a subject of the King of Heaven. He would meet the trials of his lot with fortitude and perform every duty with fidelity.
Amen.
So what are we going to do? Who are you? Who am I? Are we going to try to take control of our own lives when things are looking bleak? When things aren't looking the way we think they should? Or are we going to be like Joseph and under all circumstances act as became a subject of the King of Heaven, who would meet the trials of his lot with fortitude and perform every duty with fidelity?
Amen.